purpose today to speak about is courage. So I'll just start speaking about the opposite. So we all have all kinds of fears in our lives. So fears could range from anything from loneliness, losing someone, or it could be a fear of any living or non-living thing. Mine was a very special one. I had a fear of reptiles. Reptiles is like all the creepy crawlies, so it almost tipped towards phobia, I can say. Okay. So whenever I came across one, I would run the opposite way, blindly, many times. And Discovery Channel was banned in my home. National Geographic I would not let anybody watch. And if there were newspapers with photographs of snakes, I would just throw those things away. So it bordered to a lot of problems in my life. And my vacation spots too, there were no forests allowed. I wouldn't let my family go on forest vacations too. So it kind of, instead of living a full life, I was living a very unhealthy life due to all my fears. So one day I decided to do something about it, and how to start. So when you meditate, you get a few answers. So I started thinking, okay, so God is in all living things, non-living things. So God must be in reptiles too. So my very, very particular fear was of snakes. So I started to, I decided to start small. I thought I'll start with lizards, maybe wall lizards, garden lizards. So I would not even be in the same room if there was a lizard. So what I did was, if I spotted one in the room, I would look at it from the corner of my eye and say, "God is in you," and then I would run for my life. And I did that many, many, many times. Whether it's a garden lizard, whether it's a wall lizard, I would just say that, and then I would run. But later, slowly, I came to understand and stop, running away. At least I could stay in the same room, look at the lizard, and still say, "God is in you," and I could still stay there. Then later on, I thought I should shorten the distance now. So I started going towards the lizard and say, "God is in you," and it started happening. I was no longer afraid of any lizards or any form of creepy crawlies. But my greatest test was the snake. What should I do about the snake? So there was this, the test came very soon. My son was watching this National Geographic, and there was this big program on snakes, and they had real, close-ups of all kinds of snakes in that program. So anyway, I decided to stay there. I wouldn't be in the same room, but I decided to stay. I kept on repeating my mantra in my head, "God is in you, God is in you, God is in you." And I found, the snake moving so graceful that day. I was not even running away. I was not afraid. I could see the grace in the way it moved. I could see its magnetic, scales and the beauty of the snake. And I was amazed at myself. How could I come to this point where I couldn't even stand the sight of a snake? But my test wasn't over. The final exam was still to come. The snake just opened its mouth like this, in its full glory, the fangs out, and all the tongue out, and as if it's ready to devour me that very minute. And that mantra just disappeared. God is in you. I just forgot everything. I froze, and I couldn't move after that. But spirituality makes you creative. So I started thinking. I had to think, quickly, what to do. I couldn't run away. This was my final test, and I couldn't fail. So I said, okay, this looks like a blooming flower. Wasn't working. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's sleepy and it's yawning. Maybe I should, count the teeth inside, something like that. I tried everything. But then the mantra came back, God, God. I didn't get it all, God is in you, but I said God, God, God. And that was it. That was it. It just, went off. And that snake, it just shut its mouth, moved away as though you have passed now, your final test is over and you are free. So after that, I tried it many times again. Whenever there were, snake programs or something, I would sit there and watch and have no fear. I had no fear anymore. So I still don't know what I will do if there's a real one there right in front of me. But I'm way, way ahead of what I had begun with. So what I want to say today is fear is something which is your ego. You can work with it. It is not something that is a part of you. We are not born, to be fearful. We are not born with all these negatives. We are born free souls and we should all endeavor to live like that. And whatever comes across us, let us try, let us bring God in and remove that from our lives so that we live a free life and a spiritually very healthy life. I will just end with all these words by Swamiji, very beautifully written about courage. There are three kinds of human courage: blind, passive and dynamic. Blind courage doesn't count the cost until it finds itself faced horror-stricken with the will. Passive courage is the strength of will to adjust to reality, whatever it may be. And dynamic courage is the strength of will not only to accept reality, but to confront it with another reality of one own's making. There is a fourth kind of courage, not human, but divine. Divine courage comes from living in the awareness of God's presence within, and in the realization that He is the sole reality. Live more in Him, for nothing and no one can touch what you really are. And this is a beautiful affirmation that goes with it, because I'll just read it out to you. I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. Jai.
The topic which I have chosen today is power. Courage and power go hand in hand. I'll give you an example of the power of Swami Kriyananda, which I experienced once. There was this incident where I had given my ATM PIN number to a relative because I was not well and he had to take out some money. And then on my daughter's birthday, I had to go and take out some money for the celebration. And I went to the bank and I found that this person had taken around 10-11 lakhs over a period of time. It was all the money I had earned in so many years. It was there because the company had owed me some money and had come in a bulk. I said, okay. We saw the ATM, where the machine is there on the ATM, it takes pictures, because I did not know who had taken the money, and the picture I saw the person's face. I said, okay, there was someone with me. I told him, you take me to Ananda Center. I sat in the center, that's the first thing I did. I went to the master's photograph and I said, you have to help me here, I can't handle this. And I felt as if the photograph spoke, with me at your side, you cannot fail. Go home, you'll be alright. With me at your side, you cannot fail. So the key word was with me at your side. I went back home. I made the whole preparation for the birthday party. And the person came for the birthday party who had done this, I had no ill will towards him. And on all the birthday parties that I could have celebrated, that I was completely present in the moment in that birthday party, and it's one of the happiest, most peaceful moments of my life, that party. The story doesn't end here. A few days after this, I went to Swami Kriyananda's house and I was meditating there. Swami Kriyananda was in America at that time. During meditation, I am basically not a very good meditator. I generally can't meditate very well. And my basic temperament is not a forgiveness. It doesn't come easily to me. But surprisingly that day, after the yoga class and when I sat for meditation, I felt myself in a very uplifted environment. Because it was his house. It was his power in the house. And towards the end of the meditation, in that uplifted environment with Swamiji's, Swami Kriyananda's power all around me. I don't know from where this came. But with all my being, I said to this, I imagined this person standing in front of me and I said, all that money you have taken, I give you with my complete free will. You owe me nothing. It just came. I don't know from where it came. When I went back home, I met this person and I said, I verbalized the whole thing. And he was shocked. He said, why? I said, I don't know. But you don't owe me anything. So Swami Yogananda had said, with me by your side, you can never fail. With his power, whatever shortcomings we are trying to overcome in our daily life, in our spiritual practices, but with his power, using his power, drawing his power, we will reach it. I'll end with Swami Kriyananda's passage, where he speaks about power, because he's verbalized it very well, what I'm trying to say. The prayer goes like this. Help me to feel thy power runs through my veins. Help me to feel that thy power runs through my veins, courses through my thoughts, and sets my noble feelings afire with love for thee. Thank you.
Namaskar. Today we have the confluence. What do you call that? I remember I was in Allahabad. The Sangam. The Sangam. Yes. Okay. The Sangam. Yesterday was the anniversary of Swami Sri Yukteswar's birthday, and today is Mother's Day. And so I was trying to feel how I could put the two together, and we'll see how it goes. I was in remembering Sri Yukteswar's birthday. I was reading the chapter where Yoganandaji meets Sri Yukteswar. And it's such a momentous occasion. And Yoganandaji's description of it is just so beautiful. I do recommend any of you to, even if you've read it in the past, read it again. If you haven't read it for the first time. And then the following chapter is years in my master's hermitage. And these two chapters, they go together so well because they represent the essential core of the spiritual life, which is the guru-disciple relationship. And of course, it's easy to understand what a disciple is in the sense that the disciple is a student. And discipline is involved. You have to kind of make changes. And why you would be a disciple? Because you want to make changes. Because the way you've been living hasn't been as satisfying as you would hope. And the other side is, of course, the guru. And the guru represents God's reaching out towards us. Reaching out toward us to relieve our suffering, to draw us back home, to ease our suffering and to strengthen us and to guide us toward freedom, toward liberation from the limitations of life as we live it. And if you think about that, isn't that so much of the mother's role? The mother's real job is to reach out and nurture the child. And but then I think, you know, the soul is neither male nor female. And we create these, you know, Mother's Day and then Father's Day. Why don't we just have, like, you know, Parent Day? Or, you know, I mean, we separate. Of course, there's a certain economy that has taken over these things. They want as many holidays as possible because it gives people a reason to spend money. I remember seeing a picture that was very unexpected. It was a picture of a bodybuilder. The muscles were just huge, really big. And then there was tattoos. And when people have tattoos, I don't suppose it's as much stereotypical today as it was even 10 or 20 years ago. In America, tattoos are incredibly popular. Don't get me started on that subject. But many tattoos have what I would describe as a negative connotation. A lot of tattoos, you know, tough sailors used to get them. But then in the 50s and the 60s, the bikers, the gang, the tough guys, and they'd have all these tattoos, and they look kind of, they have a vibration that is, it feels rough like that. So here's a picture of a guy whose muscles are just like too big. I mean, you don't want to mess with this guy. And then he's got these tattoos, which means that you really don't want to mess with this guy. And then his arm is open like this, palm up, and in holding from his palm to his elbow is an infant. This little infant. And in that picture, all of the preconceptions of this stereotypical meaning of these big muscles and these tattoos is completely destroyed. There is no vibration in that picture of anything but love, of valuing the beauty and the tenderness and the fragility of that child in opposition to those muscles and those tattoos. And isn't this, you know, Kali is looking pretty, pretty tough there. A Divine Mother, you know, there's nobody, when the child is at risk, the lioness is the one you want to, you know, be careful of. Because the lion, he might eat the child too, the cub too, but the lioness won't let you mess with it. The mother is tough. Mother doesn't mess around. And yet we usually associate that motherly energy with nurturing, and in this case, defending. And we all have these qualities in us, but they're not as developed as we want. We may have attained some level of human love, but we want to experience divine love. We want to go from whatever positive qualities that we currently experience to a divine dimension of those qualities. If we feel peace, we want to feel universal peace. If we feel love, we want to feel universal love. And of course, this is really what brings people to the spiritual path, is this yearning for this union with the divine potential. The recognition that there is no human love, even in that parent-child relationship, that can really fulfill the soul. There is always a level of separateness. The only way to truly be unified with someone else is in spirit. The very nature of this world creates separateness. As long as we live in ego consciousness, we are separate. But when we when we release ourselves from that ego consciousness, we naturally go into universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness is the goal of the devotee, to be more aware of, to live in harmony with the universal potentials of the divine, servicefulness, joyfulness, peace, all of the divine qualities. So, as a disciple, this is what we seek to do. And when Yoganandaji came to Sri Yukteswar's ashram, it was so interesting. Sri Yukteswar's first comment was, "Oh, you've come. You've come." He was waiting for him. For years he waited for him until he came. And then the next thing he said was, "I give you my unconditional love." You know, you just don't meet people on the streets and they go, "Oh, you know, I give you my unconditional love." And then he said, "And I give you everything that I own. I'll give you my ashrams, everything I have is yours." And of course, then what is Yoganandaji says, "Well, I don't know if he's in well, thanks, but I came to God. I'm here because I want you to introduce me to God." This is what the disciple is seeking, to be introduced to God, to be guided, to be drawn in, to be nurtured in a way that leads towards self-realization. But you see, the parent is, you know, there's the times when you hug, but then there's the times when you have to discipline the child. You have to get the child to move in the directions that will lead to success in whatever endeavor is taking place. So, Sri Yukteswar was a very strict disciplinarian. And the thing is that when people came to the ashram, some of the disciples could take it, but most of them couldn't. Most of them couldn't take the discipline that Sri Yukteswar gave. Now, Yoganandaji had a different style, and Yoganandaji said, well, Sri Yukteswar's mission was not to have a lot of disciples. So he manifested it in a personality that would minimize that. And basically he had what you might say in terms of his responsibilities, a few stragglers, a few people who were left for him to take responsibility of. But later in the autobiography, we find that Sri Yukteswar, his mission to serve mankind is much greater in the higher spheres than it is in the physical world. And he was working with souls on a wide scale in a much higher level of advancement. But if Yogananda was an avatar and he was born free, why did he need a guru, and why did he need to be trained? Well, we know that technically he didn't. But we also know that it's the tradition that the masters who come to teach, they live by example. So they go through these things in order to show us how to do it. And in that chapter, the description of Sri Yukteswar's expression toward Yoganandaji as the guru and saying, you know, if you allow me, I will take charge of your life. And Yoganandaji said, I bow to you, I give you the right to enter my mind at any time, to guide me in any way that you feel is appropriate. And then Sri Yukteswar proved that he could do that by describing things that Yoganandaji had not expressed. And there's numerous examples of it. So you'll remember the time when they were doing the study of the Bhagavad Gita, and Sri Yukteswar said to Yoganandaji, you're not with us. And Yoganandaji said, What do you mean I'm not with you? I can tell you exactly what you just, this is what you said, and you repeated it. And Teshwar says, yeah, but you were thinking some other stuff in the background. And you were thinking of these 3 buildings that are going to, you know, come to you later in life. And then Yoganandaji's had to say, yo, you're right. you know more about what's going on there than I do. And of course, it's very likely that Yoganandaji knew exactly what was going on. But they went through this very real circumstance. And the truth is that when even avatars, when they come into the body, they spend a certain amount of time consciously and controllably disconnected from greater awareness. In other words, they're not always roaming the cosmos. Sometimes they bring themselves down. Later in life, Yoganandaji said, after he injured his foot, a wishing well that they were installing fell on his foot. And he said, oh, well, I held my mind down so I could feel the pain. You know? And then he proved that he could lift his mind up and he could walk normally. But when he brought his mind down, he couldn't walk easily. This circumstance, this situation in which the disciple finds the opportunity to be nurtured by a guru. This is the ultimate. It's motherly, it's fatherly, it's both. It's strict at times, but it is the most loving relationship of all because in it there are no barriers. The physical parent and the physical child, they can't read the thoughts. They are not unified in spirit. They have an attraction, they have a connection. Although not all parents get along well with their children. And there's cases of children even, you know, and parents killing each other. There's so much animosities. But in the most beautiful physical relationships, of course, there is that unconditional love and the willingness even to sacrifice your life for others. This relationship, this circumstance, Yoganandaji, he wanted to go to the Himalayas and had tried to escape a couple times already. He graduated high school and he went straight into an ashram that was really not his family home, in the sense that the students there were really not interested in going deep in communion with God. They were really much more interested in service and a much shallower level of interest. And then he met his guru and he started going to his guru's ashram. And he found himself intensely in an environment that led to very rapid change inwardly. The opening up and the attuning to everything that would be the rest of his life. And this is, now that I'm here, what I really want to talk about. This is something that has happened and is at the core of the spiritual life from time immemorial. The coming of the chela, of the disciple, into the environment in which they will most dynamically shift from the everyday conscious mind experience of life to seeing and experiencing life with their spirit, their superconscious awareness, rather than that lower limitation. And this transformation is what we're all trying to accomplish, to go from ego, sense, personality awareness to identification with spirit on ever deeper and deeper levels. And to get to the point where it's not just I'm feeling good today and I'm not so feeling good yesterday, but that you begin to build up a deeper and deeper equanimity. You feel closer to God more of the time rather than less of the time. That the distance between your everyday feelings and your most uplifted feelings, that distance becomes less. And eventually, the successful disciple experiences union with God that doesn't go away. This is what we're trying to get to. This is the most challenging thing that can be done. There is nothing more challenging. You can be a hero in war. You can climb the biggest mountain. You can somehow get to the deepest sea. You can go out into space. You can be the greatest surgeon. None of those things are as difficult as unifying your consciousness with infinite spirit. It is the goal of life, the purpose of life, the most challenging thing that you will ever do. And in order to accomplish it, you've got to put yourself, say, we'll go to university to become a better manager. We'll go to university to become a doctor. We need to go to transformation of my consciousness university. And this environment is the environment that has changed disciples into successful, liberated souls, as I said, since ancient times. This is how it's done. So each and every one of us needs to figure out how are we going to experience that environment. Traditionally in India, you live in the ashram. And in America, we did the same thing. We moved to a Noida village, and everybody has their story about how they left whatever it was they were doing, and they moved to the village. And for many years, we lived in a level of isolation that gave us the ability to focus 100% on the spiritual life. And each and every one of us has to recognize that this is an essential part of the process of discipleship. But it doesn't always look the same on the outside. It does look the same in principle on the inside. You have to experience this intense transformation from I'm just a regular worldly person to I am now a disciple. I'm a devotee. And the intensity of that, one of the examples that I often use is soldiers. They go to boot camp, they go in civilians, they come out soldiers. Now, it takes longer than 6 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever that is, to become a disciple. Well, let me back up and say, the amount of time it takes to become a disciple is actually instantaneous. There's a point in which you shift your personal awareness of commitment from outward to inward. But even though you've made that commitment, which just comes, when you know it, you know it. But then to accomplish it, to actually do the transformation that goes all the way through all the layers of your consciousness, that takes time. But we each must come to that point, as Yoganandaji did, although he had this incredible experience where he passed, well, first he had a vision. He had a vision of Divine Mother. She spoke to him and said, "Your guru will come to you today." Wow. He heard it with his ears. And so when somebody called him out of meditation, he didn't complain. He said, "Okay, I'm going to go meet my guru." And he's walking through the lanes. He walks by a lane, and he just sort of accidentally looks over, and he sees somebody standing down there. And he has this moment of recognition, but then he thinks, "Oh, I must just be imagining that." And he keeps walking. And he goes for a while, but then his feet start to get heavy. And it's like cement on his feet. He's going, "What's going on here? Am Am I getting ill in some way? What's wrong with me? And he turns around and suddenly his feet feel normal. But he turns around again and they feel heavy. So now he's going, oh, wait a minute. Something's going on here. And then, of course, he turns around and he goes and he meets Sri Yukteswar. Kriyanandaji had that moment too. When he first saw Autobiography of a Yogi, he didn't buy it. He bought the Bhagavad Gita instead. He only later went back. And when he went back, he had that same experience where he couldn't go. He had turned around and then he realized it and he went back in the store and bought the book. I've met other people who've had very similar experiences where in that moment they almost went by it. They could have missed it. And then there's the people who they read Autobiography of a Yogi, and 20 years later they still hadn't acted on it. But in the back of their mind it was, oh, I wonder if I should do something about that. If we leave our spiritual life on the shelf, that's where it will stay. We have to get ourselves, as soon as we have any interest, into that environment that is as intense as it can be. And we have to realize that there is no enthusiasm like the beginners. When you first discover something that you like, you're just like, oh yeah, I want to do this. You have to take advantage of that. And while you're taking advantage of that, you've got to put yourself in the most involved environment that you can. I was a Kriyaban when I came to Ananda. But I wasn't what I would describe as a successful Kriyaban. I didn't meditate regularly. I was restless. I was unfocused. But when I came to Ananda, and I became under the influence of Kriyanandaji and the other disciples who were trying to go in the same direction that I was trying to go, everything changed. I mean, in the most wonderful ways. In the autobiography, Master says that when he went to the ashram, to Sri Yukteswar's ashram, he said, as soon as I came in, as soon as I saw him, everything was good. That's how I felt at Ananda. If I saw Swami, all I just see him once during the day, that was a great day. To find that environment in which you feel that kind of connection, you feel that that God has given you this opportunity, and it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside, you have to recognize it on the inside. We live in a time now that, Ananda's offering online classes all the time. Swamiji's got literally thousands of videos online. Here's what, imagine if Krishna or Rama or Buddha or Jesus Christ, if they had, we had videotapes and we could watch them and be with them. Unbelievable. That would be so fabulous. Well, Kriyanandaji just happens to be one of the greatest exponents of the yoga teachings in history. The way that we talk about Patanjali today, Kriyananda will be talked about as time goes by. It is a body of communication that's not only intellectually transformative and informationally, but vibrationally. How do I know this is true? Well, I've experienced it. But then maybe that's just me. How many of you have been to the movie? Finding Happiness, yes, most of you. You felt it, didn't you? We've met a number of people who've been to this movie. They know nothing about us, but they feel it. They touch it. They know what they feel. Nobody can take that from us. We know what we feel. And this is the essential thing that we need to understand, is that we've got to be in an environment in which we are feeling it. It makes it so much easier. If we try to do it on our own, it's a lot tougher. So now each of us needs to do what Yoganandaji did, in the sense that we have to, I mean, most of you are Kriyabans. You're here, you've done something, you've done this to some degree. We need to keep doing it. Lord, guide me. How can I intensify this opportunity that has come into my life? How can I bring it to the next level? How can I minimize distractions? How can I bring this consciousness into my everyday life? This is a Ananda's tradition. We don't separate the temple from daily life. We say God is going to be everywhere. But if you don't spend time in the temple, you'll find it much more difficult to bring it into your daily life. We need to go through that transformation. Many people arrive for sports activities with a certain amount of natural talent, some more than others. But it doesn't matter how talented they are, they need coaching. They need training. If they're serious, if they want to do their best, if they want to accomplish the most that can be accomplished, they absolutely have to be in that training, nurturing, uplifting, improving environment. This is the Sangha. This is what the Sangha is for. And we all take part in this when we hear inspiration of other people's lives and we realize they're doing it. They're doing it. I see on their face they're doing it. Then that tells us I want to do it. And this is what I found in spiritual community is you met all of the people living there were saying, I want to do it too. And they were doing it. Some days better than others. But this is the key to recognize this opportunity, this circumstance, and that this is the path, not in the details, but in principle, that every disciple has followed in order to attain the most that they can attain in any given incarnation, is to put themselves in that position of discipleship and to allow God to guide them. And we know through our own lives that have verified the teaching, which is that when the disciple is ready, the guru will come. But the guru, every single day, allows the disciple to walk away. The guru is not a jailer, is not a policeman. The guru is the most free, loving person. The person that will say, look, do whatever you want. But if I can help you in any way, this I will do. There was a disciple that came to Sri Yukteswar, Prafula, I think that's how you say his name. And for some reason, Sri Yukteswar had a particular affection for this disciple. And he treated everybody with the same level of commitment to service. But even still, personalities have certain traits, and for some reason there was something in this disciple that he got along with easily. And for a while, it was great, but against Sri Yukteswar's advice, this fellow went off to his village for some months. When he came back, he had taken on some negative habits, and Sri Yukteswar had to say to Yoganandaji, tell him to go. He's not right for the ashram life anymore, but I can't do it. And he literally had tears in his eyes. Can you imagine what we give up when we turn away from the guru? It's just, you know, in modern slang we say, my bad, my bad. But like, this is really the biggest bad. The biggest bad thing we can do is to turn away from the Guru. But this happens. This happens. And you see it in generation after generation. There was a fellow who came to Gurgaon in, I think it was 2005. Yeah, and he came from another country, and I'm not going to say his name, but some of you may remember him. But he, Kriya Energy had very high hopes for this fellow. He had, you know, in certain ways, he had a great vibrational potential. Let me say it that way. He just had a great vibrational potential. He had something that really could be built upon. And Kriya Energy felt this strongly and invited him to come. He came and lived in the ashram, and very shortly after arriving, he was put in charge of the monks. And the doors were open. I mean, literally, the doors were wide open, just the way that Master opened the doors for Kriya Energy when he came to the ashram. And yet, in less than a year's time, this fellow, one day, he just, in the middle of the night, left. And a couple of us had to go and tell Swamiji what had happened. And Swamiji cried. He cried. And then he said, wow, I was really wrong about that one. He did not see that coming. And we won't see it coming if we don't pay attention to ourselves and realize the value of God showering upon us spiritual opportunity. And we don't know when the storms of our consciousness will drag us away. Some karmic debt will, next thing you know, we're gone and we're separated. And yes, the opportunity will come again, but maybe not in this lifetime. Who knows how many lifetimes? So in the end, it doesn't matter. We can be as playful as we want in the creation, but there's a point at which you yearn to be free. If you feel that, if you feel that motivation, take advantage of it. Dive deep into it. Ask God to guide you. How can I most connect with this? How can I be committed to this? If you have vacation time, instead of going to Goa, go on retreat. If you have a day off, I mean, you're all here today, great. But seek every opportunity to be in that satsang, uplifting environment. And that is the path that leads most quickly to freedom. And that is the embrace that God is giving us. That the Mother, the Divine Mother, is giving us that embrace and saying, here, I want to hug you. I want to hold you. I want to guide you and help you to be spiritually free. And as tough as Sri Yukteswar was, his core was just the same heart of all. And after, in his book, Kaivalya Darshana, he says, thus I have concluded, you can see the logic thereof, that God is love. And in essence, he said that the spiritual life is the awakening of the natural love of the heart. There is nothing more loving than a parent that will do that tough love when it needs to be there. But the gurus, they're free. They have no ego attachment. You have absolute freedom. We can do whatever we want. We don't have to meditate. We don't have to chant. We don't have to read the scriptures. We don't have to go to satsang. But if we want freedom, we do have to want to go. Because if we don't want to do it, we won't. And if we don't do it, we won't get there. So when we celebrate Mother's Day and Sri Yukteswar's birthday, really all days of celebration have to do with our appreciation for God reaching out towards us to bring us back home to Spirit. In the various ways that that are represented by all holidays, is we're giving thanks for that spiritual opportunity. And we have to, at each time, rededicate ourselves. And every time you feel deep, and feel the appreciation for that, and recognize that you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that the further you go into it, the greater the chance that you won't get bounced out of it. Because like a small plant, we have to protect it in the beginning. Once it's big and strong, it can hold its own. But little plants need to be protected. We need to nurture our spiritual life until we can stand strong under all circumstances. And until we can learn to be with the Guru, be in the presence all the time, not just physically. There came a point in our training where we had to learn to realize that Ananda is not a place on the outside. It's a place on the inside. And when we learned to be at Ananda on the inside, then we didn't care anymore where we were. And there was a point in my own training where I learned to feel my connection and appreciation for Kriyanandaji, whether I was with him or not. And that's what brings it to a whole nother level. When you no longer, you're not free until you're free, but when you can feel more and more of that presence wherever you are. And then you have to just keep on going until you have that ultimate experience. But if we want to get closer and closer, we have to commit ourselves to it. And it's just more and more and more. Be, as I like to say, moderately fanatical. Be a spiritual fanatic, but be a little moderate in the way they can do it. So, nobody expects everyone to just trot on up to the Himalayas. No. But what we need to do is recognize its importance and then commit ourselves every day to doing as much as we can to stay connected and to take advantage of the opportunities that God gives us. If God gives us opportunities and we ignore them, they will fall away. So, in Sri Yukteswar, many of us over the years have felt his blessings, as with all of the masters. And I encourage you to attune yourself to his vibration and to, of course, Yoganandaji's, and to recognize that they represent the Divine Mother and the Heavenly Father, and that our opportunities to be nurtured by Spirit are present. All we need to do is dive deeper, deeper, and deeper into that presence. Namaste.